Good evening, everybody. It must be Thursday night. I'm in your living room. Joe Cruz here. Born Political. Obviously, it's the politics season, actually, right now. My guest tonight is traveled all the way over from East Lyme. You know that, where you got to go over a bridge in a couple towns. Made it here to Groton. I'm really excited about this show because it's just one more person throwing their hat in the ring to what everyone says is a thankless job, but we're gonna talk about this tonight. I promise you there'll be some people that come out and are happy that you are where you are. It's not all bad, even though it seems that way sometimes. So to get right to the show, Cathy, Yuhas, welcome all the way from East Lyme. Thanks for coming out.
Hi, happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Hello, everyone.
Excellent. And so Born Political, when I started it, we talked off air, I really wanted to make sure that people knew not just a position you were running for in town or they see at the grocery store, but we found out some really fascinating things about people that run Groton. Like we have former Olympic athletes that run the senior center now, and nobody knew. And
wow,
so just cool things that and you're going to be running. So if you're watching this show and you can vote in East Lyme, this is going to be one of the folks that you're going to want to listen to and see what the plans are. But Born Political, where were you born? Are you a homer? Are you a?
I am a homer, born and raised in East Lyme.
Okay.
And my dad was a custom home builder, so I've lived in many places in East Lyme. Because every time my mom got pregnant again, he'd build another house with another bedroom, and we would move around town. So I lived in a lot of places.
Build and sell. Now, how many bedrooms did he have to build?
4 altogether.
Oh, that's a good amount.
Not terrible. Yeah.
So, and where did you land in the family? Because I think this is pretty important. Like oldest, youngest. I'm a middle child, but where'd you land?
I am a second child. I was the second. So I had an older brother, myself, a younger brother, and my sister, and we were all like 4 years apart. So growing up, none of us actually knew each other, and we got closer as we got older.
And I think everyone forgets now that we're all older. 4 years doesn't really seem like much, but that's an absolute eternity.
Right.
Right? Yeah. Your older brother graduated high school, and you never really. Did you attend high school with any of your?
No, not at all. Yeah, not 1 year.
Yep. So East Lyme, you went to elementary and everything all through East Lyme.
The whole thing. Yep.
Okay, and then you graduated high school, and did you go right to college, or did you go to workforce?
I did. I went to a community college, Northwestern Community College, and at the time. In high school, we had a really interesting history course called Topics. And one of the topics was they had representatives from colleges all over the state come and give their talk on what they offered. And I was interested in something called therapeutic recreation. Sounded interesting. And it turned out that another classmate was going to do the same thing. So we actually roomed together, and I spent 2 years up there. And then in the last year, in the last semester, I hurt my knee and couldn't complete the last class.
Wow.
So I know. So I came back home, and my mom, who worked at L&M Hospital, was able to get me a job in the physical therapy department there. So I worked there for a lot of years.
And was it a school where you did this therapy services, or was that the college?
The college, yeah.
Which college was it?
Northwestern Connecticut Community College.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Are they still around?
Yeah, up in Winstead, yeah.
Awesome. So you got the alumni stuff going on there. So your mom worked at the hospital. Was that kind of like your impetus for wanting to do this type of work, or was it?
So it was probably the start of it, but I should say that when I was going to high school, she said, "Why don't you be a teacher?" I said, "I don't want to do that." "Well, what about a physical therapist?" I said, "No, I don't really want to do that." And she said, "What about a nurse?" And I didn't want to be that either. So, long story short, here I am. I did become a nurse, but not before I did a number of jobs in the hospital. Anesthesia technician in the operating room was my first experience in the operating room, and then eventually I had my children, and back then you couldn't work part-time. You had to work full-time or nothing, so I tried to be a stay-at-home mom, and eventually went on, got another job back at the hospital, and L&M basically put me through nursing school. Okay. So I was 28 years old when that happened.
So I think a lot of people probably don't understand. I remember the transition of healthcare just from being someone that used it. But to be someone that worked in it and see where we used to be to where we are, I mean, all the meetings you have at work of why we're abusing our healthcare because we just show up to the doctor when we wanted to. And then they kind of trained us to, hey, unless this thing's real serious, don't go to the hospital. And I agree with all that stuff, but it does seem like there's and you've been in the industry for a really long time.
Yeah.
And are you still a nurse, or you're not? You
I
retired?
I am retired. I will keep my license for the rest of my life because that was too hard to work for. I'll never let it go until I can't anymore. And
Department of Consumer Protection, you have to sign up and pay a fee.
every year.
Me too. Sheet metal license, a little different.
Okay, yeah, but same thing, yeah. And so I knew I was going to be retiring, and I said, what am I going to do with my life? And my sister was the one who actually turned me on to the term death doula, and so I ended up getting certified as a death doula. And for those who don't know, a death doula supports families at end of life. It can be a really chaotic time, and nobody ever plans for it, so it's always a surprise. So I'm that person who walks alongside families and the person who's dying. And that's kind of what I do now. And that also led to writing a book because I needed more people to get the information. So,
Yeah. Well, so did and again, I think many times things are driven by experience. Why you feel like you want to do something. Obviously, being involved as a nurse, I'm sure you've seen a lot of families go through a lot of pain, and then go through this confusion of when they're not ready.
yeah.
So I mean, I'm going to let you talk about why you did what you did, or why you kind of went on with this. But I suspect that you must have seen a situation, or maybe it was your family situation, where you're like, okay, listen, there's a spot for me, and it's a joy to really help people. I can imagine death doula. It sounds like a really cool name too.
Oh, I'm glad that you say that because most people cover their ears and run the other way, or their eyes roll back in their head. It's pretty interesting. Nobody wants to talk about the D word.
But I think nurses in particular have a relationship with death that's different than most people. I think even the doctors, when you see it, they come in and they may give you the bad news, but it's always the nurses that are there at the last minute, helping families, being part of people transitioning. So I mean, I love the job you do. When I heard it, I just thought, I'm also one of the guys that believes there should be the death with dignity. I mean, and I'm not sure where you stand on that. We don't have to dig into that either, but I just think that we are so afraid of death in this country sometimes. It's refreshing to hear that. I never heard of a death doula up until 2 weeks ago, and now I've heard of 2 people. Like I told you, maybe people were saying it and it was going over my head, and then when I saw it written down, I said, "What is a death doula?"
Yeah, it's becoming more popular, and when COVID hit, I think that's when people really saw the need. So that's when it really became popular and started skyrocketing. But I've worked in critical care, the emergency room, ICU. And I've always been drawn to hospice and home care. And so I would do that. And then when I would burn out on the Medicare paperwork, I would go work in the operating room. And we don't see a lot of death there. We make sure that it never happens in the OR, but we do see some pretty critical people. And then when you get burned out on that, I mean long 10 to 12-hour days, I'd go back to home care and hospice, and so I just have a natural affinity for it anyway.
Yep.
It doesn't scare me. I feel like it's a really honoring place to be. And as a hospice nurse, I mean, frequently I would hear people say, I feel like the weight of the world is lifted off my shoulders by you coming through the door. So I feel good about doing that.
That's awesome. And like I said, the whatever path it took you to get there, whatever reason it was, if you find yourself being in the right place, it feels right anyway.
Yeah.
And how now? There's people watching. This is a live show, and we just went through it with our family. My uncle, after 88 years, transitioned. My cousin largely did a lot of that himself. He's the youngest boy. He stayed home. Him and his wife did a ton of the care. So there was, it's one of those things that I think everyone in our family will say, God, I hope I don't have to go through this with my parents, or God, I really hope my family and my daughter and my wife don't have to go through that with me. But we should face those questions, and I think we don't, and we're all, tight about it until here it is all of a sudden, it's at your door. And so if somebody was looking, like say if they're in a situation, how do they get a hold of a death doula, or are you guys in a phone book? do you put DD up in the sky and you guys show up?
That's a good idea.
That's taking Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh, right. Well, that's a good point. Unless I use my brand colors.
There you go.
So I have a social media Facebook business page. for the longest time, I was advertising in a local publication for about 4 years, and just didn't get anything from that. So that was actually what inspired me to write the book, because people need this information. When someone's diagnosed with a terminal illness or something happens and you're suddenly in the hospital with something, and all of a sudden you're having to make changes,
Yep.
and make decisions. Nobody's prepared for that. So I'm a huge advocate that if you're 18 years or older, you should have an advance directive. And all that is just making your healthcare wishes known. If you can't speak for yourself, do you want to be on a ventilator? Do you want chest compressions? And then you have to pick somebody, if you can't speak for yourself, to be able to communicate your wishes when you can.
Yep.
It's simple. Once you do it, I say it's done, you're done.
Yep.
And get on with your life and live your best life. But if that is in place, it's almost like a gift to families, because then they're
You
not
made the
having
decision.
to make those decisions. And oftentimes when people are making decisions, they're making those choices based on their own agenda, not what the person would have wanted. So
I've seen that happen, and I do not have what you're talking about set up, but I'm very strong.
I can help with
have a
that.
strong opinion about not being kept alive. I have a strong. I'm an organ donor. I feel like if someone can use it and I'm not using it anymore, those are things that I think are hard conversations for a husband and wife to have. I would never even attempt to talk about this with my daughter. She'd probably panic and freak out. But your point is, my daughter wouldn't have to make that decision if I made it.
correct. Yeah.
So why even put it on them? It's kind of like and so that's what you do. You'll meet
Yeah.
people before everything sort of hits the fan.
Yeah, so that's one of the things I do more than anything is work with people with advanced directives. It takes a couple of hours sitting down at the kitchen table.
Yep.
I usually go through and explain each thing, because people hear feeding tube. Well, what does that mean? Well, when you're in that position, a feeding tube is a surgical placement of a tube into your stomach.
Yeah.
Do you want that? And then you're kept alive, but you have to look at the condition as a whole.
Mhm.
And the other thing that this is going to be my next thing to get on a soapbox about is that, and I want to create a keynote speech around this, is that I would really love the medical community to be more forthcoming to a patient what their condition is, instead of saying, oh, this is not working, let's just try the next best thing.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, you know what, you're heading in this direction, let's have another conversation, or even just a backup plan. But that never happens, and then suddenly you're in that position where you have to make those decisions.
Yep.
Or the family has to do that for you. And you can't make good decisions when you're in an emergent situation or when you're floundering in grief. You just can't.
And not to compare animals to human beings, but I actually think vets have developed a rapport with people. When I walked in, we were devastated losing an 8-year-old dog that was absolutely zinging around the yard 2 days before. And then you bring her in and find out she has all the cancer in the world. And my ask was, what would you do if it was your dog? Because they were talking about all things they could do and how much time we could get. And I knew my dog was the kind that would really go after stuff. And I'm like, you're gonna cut it from here to here. And he looked at me and said, if it was my dog, I would make a decision to put it down. And it's amazing to me that we do love our animals, and we never want to say goodbye. But I think the conversation to have with mom and dad is like, it should be the same, because the love, it's a relationship. But it's scary. I think, I don't want to talk about this the whole time, because you are running for something. And we haven't even talked about your book, because the name of the book. Let's talk about that for a few minutes, and we're going to talk about what you're doing now. I mean, it's absolutely fascinating, and I'd love to have you back on the show one day to really kind of dig in, because I think there would be a great informational show for people that are out there.
I would love to.
Excellent. So let's talk about your book, and I know it's about death.
Yeah. So really, you think that it's about death. The title is "Walking Each Other Home: Guiding Caregivers and Community Through the Sacred Passage of Death." So it's funny, because I started out writing it I started out wanting to get the information out to the community, and I created a 6-week workshop, which was really successful. I held it at Brian Daigle's Healing Heart Center in Niantic.
Okay.
We have our
We know
own
the
grief
Daigles.
center. Yeah, and she was so wonderful, and it was very successful. And then I was like, okay, I reached 7 people. How can I reach more people? So I looked at all the material that I had for the workshop, and I said, geez, maybe I should make this into a book. And that's how it started. So it's like a roadmap. Let's talk about death first. You know, I just want to say right out loud, talking about death doesn't make it happen sooner. So don't be afraid.
Superstitious people out there may disagree, but I'm in
Possibly.
your camp.
Yeah.
I'm in your camp.
So it started out like that, and then it started out about how did we get here and what did we used to do in the past. You know, it used to be a community event, and then hospitals came in, and then people started dying in hospitals.
Yep.
And suddenly it became a mystery because they went in the hospital, they died, and we never saw them again.
Yep.
There wasn't the family gathered around in the parlor and that sort of thing. So,
I think
how
most
did we
people
get there?
don't know in New London. I had old homes.
Yeah.
You know, and they said, why did you call this the parlor?
Mm-hmm.
Like, were you guys cutting hair in here? What were you doing? I said, it was a funeral parlor.
And why do they call it the living room? Because the living people would be in that room, and the dying person or dead person would be in the parlor. Right?
Is that in the
So
book? Because I didn't know that.
I didn't put that in the book.
Okay,
no,
that's a
I
good
don't.
fact
I mean,
to
I've
know.
heard a living room called other definitions too, but I have heard that one. So
That
and it
makes a lot of
sense.
sense.
Yeah.
Because why would you
Yeah.
just say, yeah, I guess what else? Yeah, you're living and having fun, or
Yeah. Well.
I guess game room could have been. But yeah, I guess if they're gonna have an area where you bury,
Yeah.
and it was used so infrequently. But I mean, if you guys know anything about historical homes, the big windows in those front parlors were so they could slide the coffin in, right? Like that's what they had told me. And
Yes,
maybe
I've heard
maybe it
that
was just
too.
because they wanted to put a big window there. But I'm still gonna stick with that story. If the
I-
living room's the living room, then the window was for the coffin.
And it makes sense. Yeah.
Right, and it makes
Yep.
sense. So we talked about the book. We haven't talked about your children. Do you have any children? Or?
I had 2 children. One
Okay.
is no longer living. He died from an overdose. And I have my oldest daughter, and I have a going on 23-year-old granddaughter.
Oh my gosh.
Who's getting married this year.
I'm sorry about your son,
Yeah, thank
and we
you.
actually share the loss. I lost my son as well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We know how tough that can be.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
now was that something that kind of drove you to doing the death doula stuff, or was it something that you were already
So
involved
that
with, or?
experience actually added to, so a lot of the book is not only just my nursing experience, but my lived experience, because I also have a brother who died by suicide. So I've had a lot of loss.
Yep.
And so I can, and I did actually go on to get a grief educator certification too, just to flesh out and fill out the death doula part, because it didn't feel right to just say, okay, your loved one has died, see you later.
Yep.
And you know, that's what happens in hospice. Although you get a card once a month, you know, reminding them that there are services available, but so I just felt like I needed to be able to offer that. So there's a big part on grief in the book.
So if my wife is watching, she does often. She probably wants to crawl through this TV and come and sit down and talk to you.
Oh, okay.
You
I
know,
would love to do
she
that
would.
with her.
I mean, it's kind of been our life's work. My son was addicted as well, and then we created a nonprofit called Community Speaks Out. The guy I called the producer in there, along with Mike, but Jeremy is a board member. So we have a lot of people that are really moving and pushing the help and understanding right here in Groton. We just got to build, and we do have grief groups.
I love
for,
that. I
for
love
folks
that.
that lost.
Yeah.
So that's, and we'll talk about that off air. But again, sorry for your loss, and so many of us
And you, yeah.
have suffered through it, and
Yeah.
Needlessly, I think. And but you know, it's hard to really kind of wrap our head around.
Yeah. And it's
we only have
national-
10
it's-
minutes. Remember, I told you.
Oh, yeah.
I told you how fast and easy the show is going to be. Like, people will come in like, what are we going to talk about for a half hour? You literally, I could talk to you for 5 hours. We wouldn't have a problem talking. But we are going to talk about the position you're running for. First of all, thank you for running. It's not the easiest times in our country. You know, obviously we should acknowledge what happened yesterday. Absolutely disgusting. And no matter what the politics, you know, I was obviously for me, I was on the other side of what he believed. We cannot move forward. We cannot become a better society if that's going to be the answer or how we deal with it.
Yeah.
And you know, obviously you and I losing people so close to us, my mind immediately goes to the daughters, to the wife. Like, I can't imagine my wife having to say goodbye to me because somebody was upset at something I said. I mean, we just really have to get past that. And again, East Lyme running for office doesn't sound like you could be in for trouble, but everyone with internet and YouTube and there's a lot of things happening in East Lyme, especially related to the zoning department, that it is, people have discovered East Lyme.
Yeah.
And actually Eastern Connecticut altogether, and everybody wants to come here and they want to build, but I think what's important is the folks that want to see their town, be developed in a way that the community wants, probably runs for positions like this. So, and I'm going to let you talk about why you want to run, but I know what made me want to go to town council. So what made you want to run for zoning?
So it sort of hit right at that retirement part of ending my nursing career. Even though I was doing the death doula thing, that wasn't completely full-time yet. It was actually, I had an illness which ended working in the OR, and then I said, well, I need to reinvent myself, let's get the death doula thing going. But then I had dipped my toes into the DTC. I had gone to a couple of meetings. I just wanted to see, I wanted to be part of the community. I wanted to do something to give back, to have meaning for myself, and it started like that. And then one day on a social media thing, I don't know whether it was the secretary of the zoning department, but a little notice went out that said there's an alternate position open. If you're interested, send your bio. And I first thought, well, I'm a nurse. What is that? I mean, what is the experience? And then I thought, well, wait a minute. My dad was the builder in town.
Yep.
I've rehabbed a number of homes that I've lived in throughout my life. I know a little bit about the process, and I said, maybe I can, offer something. So I did that, but because it was a position that was supposed to have been filled earlier but wasn't, it had to go before the Board of Selectmen, and so I was appointed. And there were 3 or 4 other candidates, and I was just literally shocked that I was chosen.
In what year?
But,
did that happen?
it was 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah, because this coming December ends my term. So I was, debating, do I want to run for the alternate position again? And then I found out that others on the board were not going to run, and I said, well, why don't I run?
Yep.
And I finally got the experience.
Yep.
When I first, my first meeting that I went to, there was a vacancy up on the thing, and I had to be seated, and I was literally terrified. I had to plunge right into 830G issues.
830G?
Right away.
So I really didn't hear about that until I was elected up in Hartford, and that's it's a touchy issue. It's the one thing I will say, and most candidates I talk to, and even me to some extent when I first got in, I'm like, what do I know? I mean, I'm not the greatest at budgeting my own checkbook. I'm not the greatest, so now I'm gonna run for something where I'm gonna be in control of the budget. And it's not about the budget. It always is, because you're voting on the money. But you have absolute experts that come in front of you, whether it's your police chief will come in front of you and tell you if he or she needs new radios, or if they don't need new radios, or if they need a new car, or if they need to give the officers a raise. You will hear all those things. Then it becomes you and your values and what you want your town to look like. And that's really, so when I hear people say, I didn't know if I was gonna be smart enough or if I was gonna be able to do it, and the answer is yes. Like, if you have a passion and you're watching out there and you want to run for something, run for it, because you would be, the amount of information that is given to you, especially in a town manager or selectman, the amount of presentations and the people that if they want to build a condo, they're going to show you every square inch, what they plan on doing, where the cars are going to go, and then you'll be able to take your values and talk to your neighbors and see if they agree with what everyone's talking about. It's pretty much.
And I really want to listen to people, and I do listen to people, and I have been. Like, I'm on Facebook, there's the East Lyme Community Forum, and I literally read comments because I want to know what people are thinking. And I get a good idea, and people, they come up to me on the street and they ask me questions all the time now. So, I want to know what they're thinking. I think most people, they want to maintain Niantic. I heard a term the other day that I was intrigued by, and someone said, I don't want this to become another Mystic Light or a Mystic Light. and I said, oh, yeah, well, I do want to keep the town character. I mean, we're watching historical homes get raised as we look at it, and then these, big buildings are being put up, and nobody wants that. We want the town character.
Yep.
And kind of what makes sense to me is a term that was relatively new to me until now is smart development. And so making sure that houses fit in where they should fit in.
Yep.
Not a house in the middle of two tall, 4-story structures, and that houses should be placed where there's already infrastructure.
Yep.
So it doesn't make sense to start sprawling out and then having to bring the utilities out there when we have areas. We have 2 beautiful little villages. Yep. And so build upon that, so there's walkability and sustainability. And
I think they're finding that everywhere. Groton in particular, there's a bunch of condos. New London has really, I think, put it in high gear, I'd say, with the amount of condos and the amount of living that's happening there. But there is definitely a balance. And I think, you're going to have 2 different varying opinions on how much development you need. And that's where, when I tell people that politics, as much as people say it's so bad, I went into a meeting and out of the blue, I could see something that you voted on that I didn't like, right? But you've been on this board for 2 or 3 years. You've gone to all the meetings and you've done your homework. And that's why when the council makes a decision and they put something on, my wife will say, "There's a question on there. Am I voting for it?" I go, "Vote for it." Like it's a Democrat or Republican proposal, whether it's to put a new pump in or something. I know I was there. So I was on the council and I had 2 other councilors climb down a 100-foot hole to go find out why the pump was going to be $2 million. And they guess what? They asked me to go because I'm a construction guy. And I said, I'm going to listen to the 3 bids, our Public Works Department, and the DEP that said, now that we know it's a failure point, and if it does fail, that Groton would get, we'd be, first of all, pumping raw sewage into Mumford Cove, which would have been horrible. But then when we vote for it, people say, Joe, you voted for a $2.5 million pump? But those are the things that you'll be in the grocery store and someone's going to say, why did you vote? Why didn't you vote for it? And really, I tell people, go to meetings, right?
I was just going to say, if I had one wish, or I could, rub the genie thing, I would say that I wish that people would show up for meetings. And East Lyme makes it so accessible. I mean, it's streamed live on YouTube. You don't even have to leave your living room. Yeah. You could watch it live on YouTube. Yep. Or you could watch it on a replay, or you could read the minutes. But I do get that a lot. People they will come up and they're very angry about it. And I want to say, well, where were you? Why didn't you come to the meeting? We had a public hearing on it. Why didn't you come?
Well, the word you hear over and over again when someone's really angry is transparency. And I walked in that night and you voted for it, and I can't believe you did that. I said, just so you know, that was like the schools. I really was pushing schools when we were doing the new. And I think we could all agree that, especially after COVID, we realized how we were lacking. We solved that problem, but the people that were angry about it, I said, you really could have been part of this early. But why didn't we have a field over here and not here? I'm like, those were all the questions. We were like, you find yourself trying to pull it out of people, right? You're reading posts and all these other things. We are down to 1 minute.
Oh.
1 minute. I told you it goes fast.
Wow.
It goes fast.
Oh, wow.
So when's your election?
November 4th.
It is right around the corner, right?
Yeah.
So I want to thank you for coming out on the show, and thank you for talking about yourself and putting yourself out there. Also, thank you for running. Zoning is it's another tough job that someone in town has to do it, and she chose to do it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Cathy Yuhas. She will be on the ballot. She's the endorsed Democrat in East Lyme. Yep. Take and look and read down. I'm going to have a few other politicians on all the way up until the election. Get out and vote and go to the meetings. Go there. We'll see you guys next Thursday. Born Political. Take it easy.